0777-701220. Builders Village, your one-stop building service provider.
Lusaka, are you ready? The moment we've all been waiting for is almost here. The Keke Day Marathon, proudly sponsored by Professional Insurance, Zambia's largest general insurance company, presents to you Zambia's most loved marathon for the 5th year running. This year is bigger and better. 6,000 runners, 6,000 heartbeats, all running for one cause, the Tiende Pamosi legacy. It will be a time for corporates, families, friends, content creators, aerobics enthusiasts, kids playtime, but above all, it will be a time to remember. Remembering Keke's love for music, his love for health, and his love for sport. So save the dates, Tuesday 28th April 2026 at Polo Field B, starting at 05 hours. Professional Insurance, your insurance running mate.
Trust built over the years should grow with you. That's why AfLife Holdings, the parent company of African Life Financial Services and Benefits Consulting Services, is evolving its brand to reflect who we are today and how we serve you. African Life Financial Services will now operate as AfLife Investments, and Benefits Consulting Services will now operate as AfLife Pension Administration. For over 34 years, AfLife has been a market leader in investment management and pension administration, built on reliability and strong performance. With this new identity, AfLife Investments, AfLife Pension Administration, AfLife Properties, and AfLife Capital will continue delivering the superior service you know and trust. To learn more, email inquiries@aflife.co.zm or visit www.afhold.co.zm. AfLife Holdings, building wealth together.
The views expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of the radio station or its presenters. Listener discretion is advised.
Let the people talk.
If the head does not see the need to discipline all his children, then Zambia is going to be left for the dog.
Let the people talk.
Aaron Rama kudibe economy yavuta. Batiganzire kwa hivi tarifa hiki ya malaite bei.
Your voice.
And I repeat, my life is the Luchi. If you think that until one day they come to you, Mr. Givenville was beaten by his own cadres. What do they do, all of them? Nothing.
Your views.
And if politicians steal, definitely they steal for the future, so that they can live well. For heaven's sake, we even put the list.
Let the people talk. Every Tuesday and Friday at 9 a.m. on Phoenix FM.
Good morning, it's 9:08 on a Friday, the 24th of April. I believe it's the last Friday in the month of April. I hope everyone has had a good week. On the program this morning, our focus is around issues to do with the elections, but also quite a lot of our conversation this morning will focus on the announcement of the 70 new constituencies that were announced last week by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Joining us this morning is Mr. Brown Kasaro, who is the Chief Electoral Officer at the Electoral Commission of Zambia, just to help us unpack what this means as we get ready to the elections in August, what the 70 new constituencies mean, what it means for you as a voter as well, because I know that there are some people that would have concerns, i.e., what does it mean in terms of where they go and vote from if they're in one constituency that has been impacted. I know, for example, I'll speak for Lusaka because we had this conversation actually with Mr. Kasaro when he was last here. What would happen if Munali was split in two? Well, it wasn't split in two, but for those that are in Kalingalinga, somehow they find themselves no longer in the Munali constituency. But we'll try and unpack everything for our listeners. Mr. Kasaro, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Lucy. I'm doing well, and good morning to our listeners out there.
It's good to see you. At least you don't look as tired as I do, which is a good sign.
Thank you for that compliment. Yeah.
How is the commission?
Busy.
Yeah.
We have back-to-back activities. Yeah. So for us now, every day is a working day. Yeah. We don't have a weekend. We don't have a holiday.
Yeah. So the last time you were here, you spoke about a roadmap.
Yeah.
Where are we in the roadmap at the moment? I'm just curious in terms of the milestones that have already passed and what's ahead.
All right. So if we're to pick up the key ones, in March we had the inspection of the provisional register of voters. Let me take a step back a little. February into April now, we've been busy with delimitation, which was announced on April 16th. Then March, we put out the provisional register of voters for people to inspect their details and verify. So right now, we are consolidating that information and preparing the final register. So this month end, the nation will be told how many people will be on the register of voters for the 2026 general election. So this is one other key milestone. The next that will follow almost immediately after is the nominations. So Parliament dissolves 15th May, meaning we will have vacancies in all the 226 constituencies and also the 1,800 plus wards. So we'll be doing nominations the week starting 18th May. 18th May to 22nd May, we'll have aspiring candidates file nominations. By the end of the day on Friday 22nd, the nation will know who is standing for presidency and indeed the constituency, mayoral, and local government seats. Then we get into the campaign period. While the commission will be working in the background to prepare the necessary materials, key of which is the ballot papers. And then we move into the final training, recruitment and training of staff, deployment in readiness for August 13th. So that's what the next few months are looking like.
Okay. Can I just, so I have a couple of questions around the next couple of months, but let me start with, I think, the one that will interest a few people. The recruitment perspective, there's no database, correct? Seeing as there's these big conversations around database.
No, there is no database. Okay. So what we're looking at in terms of numbers here is we as we finalize the register of voters, we will know the number of polling stations. So right now we're estimating, plus minus 14,000. Okay. And each of these 14,000 polling stations requires 5 people to manage the operations. So we will put out an advert out there for the recruitment of these 70,000 plus individuals that will conduct the elections, that will manage the operations at the polling stations countrywide. So that stakeholders should expect that sometime in June, July.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And just again, going back to the timelines, how dependent is the timeline on the electoral process amendment bill that is currently sitting in Parliament?
The timeline is fixed, notwithstanding the bill, because the timeline is dependent on the Constitution. So 13th August is set in the Constitution, and dissolution of Parliament is set May 15th. So those are already set. And then we have to do the nominations shortly after, and then we proceed. So critical to the process, but the timelines still stand because they're based on the Constitution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I also have a question around nomination fees. I know that the Commission had put out a circular from the meeting that you had with stakeholders saying that you're going to have a revision of nomination fees, particularly for parliamentarians, councillors, etc., etc. At what point within the next I suppose before the 15th of May? That's when people will know what the fees are. At what point should people expect this announcement?
This announcement will be out before the end of next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so by the month end of April, the nation will know the nomination fees for the members of Parliament, council chairpersons, the mayors, and indeed the councillors. Remember also, for purposes of affirmative action. There's also that breakdown of female candidates, youth candidates, and indeed persons with disabilities. So all that information will be shared before the end of next week.
All right. Am I allowed to ask you the question about the party list, or that is dependent again on the bill that is sitting in Parliament?
It's dependent on the bill, and so we can discuss it.
Okay. And in terms, so my mother asked me a question yesterday because I was home yesterday, and she said she had heard in the news that 2 candidates had paid for presidential nominations. Are you able to just confirm whether it is in fact 2 that are paid at the moment? Or are those just rumors that are going on?
It's true. At least 2 have paid. At least 2 have paid. Yeah.
Is there a deadline for payment of these nominations used for presidential candidates?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. I think very critical, because I think there was some misunderstanding there. So legally, the deadline is the day the candidate files their nominations. So for the presidential election, the Commission has set 5 days in which to receive nominations, beginning the 18th, so Monday the 18th of May, into Friday the 22nd of May. So the day that the candidate comes to file, that's when the deadline for payment of nomination fees comes in. So that's applicable across all the elections. So it's not mandatory that the person pays in advance. The deadline is the day that you're filing the nomination. So let's be clear there. Now, however, for the presidential candidates, there is a requirement. In one of the requirements in the Constitution is that for a person aspiring to be president, there ought to be supported by 100 registered voters from each province. 100 registered voters from each province. So practically what that would mean is that the day the person is going to the nomination center in Lusaka before the chairperson of the commission, they would have to bring in those 1,000 registered voters, 100 from each province, and present them before the commission, verify they are registered voters, and then they sign that we are nominating this person to stand as president. But now that would be quite, logistically challenging for the candidates. So what the commission has done, an administrative measure, is to say, let's help by processing these supporters in the respective provincial capitals. So we, once a presidential candidate, a person or party expresses interest to, they're aspiring to be a presidential candidate, then they indicate to the commission so that then we can help facilitate processing of their supporters in the respective provinces. Now, for us to confirm that, we've said for those, they are required to pay the nomination fee in advance, because that's a confirmation that really we need to put our logistics up, because it will cost the commission to go out there. So we would rather go when we're sure that this person we don't want to go there and then we sit and no one turns up. So we've provided that payment in advance for purposes of pre-processing of supporters. And you recall last month there was a misunderstanding. No, the commissioners put deadline for 29th and so on. But really, that is for purposes of pre-processing of supporters. Again, not a legally mandatory requirement, but an administrative measure that the commissioners put in place for the convenience of the candidates. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about... Actually, before we do that, so there was a question last week on Tuesday when I was here with a governance activist. There was a question from one of our listeners about independent candidates. Has there been any change at all in the manner in which independent candidates either file in their nominations, or are you able to just share if there's any change that affects those that intend to stand as independents?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. So they for independent candidates, as the word says, they're independent, so they file their nominations. They still have to, if it's presidential, they still have to provide 100 supporters from each province and the other necessary documents. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk then about delimitation. The 70 new constituencies that were announced by the chairperson of the commission. Are you able to just explain for people that may have missed out on where the process started from, and I suppose also what inspired these reforms?
All right. Yeah. So delimitation is the process of the coming up with boundaries for purposes of elections. Okay, and in Zambia, this mandate lies with the commission. So the Electoral Commission, is the institution responsible for determining boundaries for purposes of elections, and these boundaries are essentially at about 3 levels. Okay, we have the constituencies themselves, and then at the lower level we have the wards for purposes of election to the councils in every district, and then we have the polling station where people go to register during registration and indeed vote come poll day. Now, the law gives the mandate for the commission to determine the numbers and all that for the 2 lowest levels. So polling stations entirely within the mandate of the commission to establish as many polling stations as it would like. Same with councils. Of course, there is the wards. There is consultations with central government through the Ministry of Local Government, but that is within the mandate of the Electoral Commission. Now, for constituencies, it's slightly different. The commission has the mandate to draw the boundaries. However, the number of constituencies is fixed in the highest law of the land, which is the Constitution. So, Luchi listeners out there would appreciate that in the last 20, 30 years, every time there's been a constitutional review commission, there's been submissions from stakeholders that the number of constituencies should be increased. Yeah. But also, the commission in its work and also as outlined in the Constitution, every 10 years following a census is supposed to do a review of the constituencies. So this the commission has consistently done, and the result of those reviews have been recommendations to increase the number of constituencies. But up until 2025, the amendment to the Constitution did not take place. Now, in December 2025, I think 18th, the Constitution was amended to increase the number of constituencies from 156 to 226. So that then is what has triggered this delimitation that we're speaking about. So now that the Constitution was amended, the Commission now that amendment triggered the commission to execute its function, because one of the provisions in the Constitution says the new constituencies take effect at the next dissolution of Parliament. So this 70 had to be determined so that come May 15th, 2026, they take effect, so that then people can, aspiring candidates can contest elections in those 226 now constituencies. So once again, it is the amendment of the Constitution coupled with the functions of the Commission now, so that then kicked in this delimitation process. So this is what has led to where we are at.
Okay. I think also people will be curious to know the factors that the Commission looked at when they decided which constituencies should undergo a process of delimitation.
Yeah. So as I indicated earlier, this function of the Commission is also the function to do with delimitation is outlined in the Constitution, the highest law of the land. So there's 2 articles there, or 2 parts in there that address this, Article 58 and 59. So Article 58 speaks about what I mentioned earlier, that every 10 years following a census, the Commission should review, and once that has been done, the Commission should publish the names and boundaries of the constituencies in the Government Gazette. Now, the next article, 59, spells out the factors that the Commission must take into consideration in determining the boundaries of the constituencies. And this is really the basis of this exercise. So the first of these, I'll just spell them out. There are just 5 of them. So the first of these is that the Commission must take into consideration the history, diversity, and cohesiveness of the constituency, and then have regard to the population density, trends, and projections, and ensure that the number of inhabitants in each constituency is reasonable, taking into account the means of communication and the geographical features. Maybe if I may just take a step back and probably explain some of this. Let me go back to the first one. History, diversity, and cohesiveness. So what the Constitution is instructing the Commission here is that in establishing a constituency, how will this enhance cohesion in that particular community? How does it recognize the diversity of the people living in that community? How does it take into consideration the history of that particular community? An example to relate to is that one of the items that had to be considered in this process is naming of a constituency. Okay? Now, the Commission, in guiding stakeholders as they were deliberating and in the final determination, had to be careful. If a name was proposed, is this name inclusive? Would this name engender cohesiveness, or would it be identified with just one corner of the constituency and therefore create the impression that this constituency belongs to these people in this area rather than indeed all the inhabitants? So that's one. Number 2, it's the issue of population density, trends, and projections. So the Commission has to rely on official statistics of government from the Zambia Statistics Agency in terms of the population census. And as we know, the latest report is the 2022 census. Okay. Now, ZAMSTAT not only issue out a census report at a particular point, but they also do issue projections. What is the projected population of a particular province, district in 2025, 2030, and so forth. Why talk about projections is because I think as in Zambia, what we probably can all relate to is mining development. We all know Northwestern Province, the population projection is growing because of the mining activities going on in there. So those are some of the considerations in that particular provision.
So you weren't just looking at, because this is the thing that I've seen since the announcement was made, is that, people then started tabulating population sizes at current, versus, what was eventually delimited. You're saying that projection was also looked at?
Yes, projection was also looked at. Yeah. So the third factor, which also addresses your question, is that the Constitution requires that the Commission ensures that the constituency have a reasonable number of inhabitants, and taking into account the means of communication and the geography. So what does this mean? You may find, I think Zambians are familiar in terms of our terrain. There are certain districts like with huge water bodies, or indeed mountain ranges like Nyimba district. You have your Muchinga escarpment this other side. So in looking at this, so what this means is that in some instances, in as much as you'd like to have a reasonable number, so reasonable in this case would be a rough division. How many, what's the population of Zambia? Roughly 20 million divided by 226, 87, 88,000. Okay, let's make sure each constituency. But the settlement patterns, the geographical features on the ground would not enable you to get that. So have consideration for that in your looking at the reasonableness of the number of people in a particular constituency. The fourth is that we ensure that the constituencies are wholly within a district. So I like to say that those of us in Lusaka can easily relate to this, because most of us say we work in Lusaka, but actually live either in Chongwe, Chilanga, Chiwombo, Kafue, and so on. So a typical example would be the people in Minwood, Kwamwena, Chamba Valley. Very, for all intents and purposes, they think they're in Lusaka. So one would say, okay, why not, as we're creating the new Roma constituency, pick up that community also, let it be part. But no, they're in Chongwe district. So the constituency cannot cross district boundaries. We have to stay within the district boundaries. The last but not the least, it's more of an elaboration of the third factor, but with a different perspective. So this one now focuses on population. It says, seek to achieve approximate equality of constituency population. Again, that issue to say on face value, sit on the table, 20 million divided by 226. Yeah. But the Constitution says do that subject to the need to ensure adequate representation for urban and sparsely populated areas. All right. So these are the factors. So what does this really mean? Is that representation has to do with both the numbers and accessibility. How can I easily get to the member of parliament, or vice versa? How can the member of parliament get to a particular community? And in pointing out this, an example would be, I think, Kasempa district in Northwestern Province. Let me just get to my numbers there. It's a very big district, 21,000 plus square kilometers. Okay. Now, 21,000 plus square kilometers. That's one district. So just for the listeners out there to picture this, because square kilometers may not relate. This is almost equal to the size of Lusaka province. So what I mean by Lusaka province, so you combine Kafue district, Chilanga, Lusaka, Chongwe, and probably part of Rufunza. All this area is covered by one district in the northwest, Kasempa. Okay, so what the Constitution is saying there is that, all right, as much as you want to divide, you need to divide the 20 million by 226 to arrive at approximately equal number of people in a constituency. Have regard for this scenario. Here's a district. As we speak, it's got one constituency. Okay? And the people in that district are spread out throughout. So probably takes about 200 plus kilometers to traverse across the district. So in doing this delimitation, have regard for the densely populated, which is your Lusaka, Kanyama, Chawama, Matero, Mandevu, as well as your Kasempas, which are sparsely populated, but the people equally require representation. So the key there is representation, adequate representation. So the context of adequate representation would differ from the urban to the rural. Yeah. So those were the 5 factors that guided the Commission in coming up with the constituencies.
Now, obviously, you had a lot of help from, because you did these consultations across across the country. I'm assuming that you had a lot of help, together with a lot of instruction, as you were going out for these consultations, to say, this is what we're looking for. As you deliberate, please be on the lookout for these factors. How much of those deliberations made up what was in the final report in terms of the constituencies that ended up being delimited?
All right. So you're right. So thank you for that. And maybe just a bit of background for our listeners is that as the Commission embarked on this program, it launched it via stakeholder meeting in Lusaka, and then proceeded and outlined the steps that would go through. So the first was that the commission would conduct stakeholder meetings in all the 116 districts across the country. And the commission proceeded to facilitate these meetings. So invited there were, your traditional leaders. And in a good number of cases, they attended in person. But in an equally good number of cases, they sent representatives. We had all the elected officials in those districts, councillors, the mayors or council chairperson of that district, the members of parliament for the constituencies in that district. Then we had heads of government departments, the civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, or indeed the church in those districts. And also members of the public. These meetings were open to the public. And these meetings were facilitated by officers of the Electoral Commission. So the town clerk or council secretary for the district is our district electoral officer. They chaired these meetings, and officers from head office were available in each of the districts to lay out these factors that I have outlined, but within the context now, contextualizing them to the districts. So, for example, we speak about the geographical features and so forth. So these were not things that were just being spoken to abstractly. With the help of technology, GIS technology, maps were brought up, and people could visualize, could see it. So, all right, this is how our district is in terms of the geographical features. Then also the settlement patterns. Again, with the help of ZAMSTATS and the Ministry of Lands, the Surveyor General's Office, we were able to get these different types of data, so that then as the stakeholders were deliberating, they had tangible information they could work with and relate to these factors that we're speaking about. In some cases, they had to be reminded. For example, like Lusaka, I was saying, so no, that's not that's not in your district. Yours ends here. And so forth. So these were meetings that had the necessary information, such that as the stakeholders were deliberating, it was not abstract, it was not out of any subjective issues. Of course, when it came to names and so forth, guidance was provided, but then they were able to discuss and come to consensus. But as first of all, as they were putting across a submission to justify the need for an additional constituency, they could relate to the factors and say, all right, look, I think we do. I think we do qualify because of A, B, C, D. Now, in terms of the final outcome, it's really a reflection of the submissions. Okay? The only one that would say did not is those that have not been allocated, because all the 116 said we would like to have an extra, all of them, but we only had 70. And because Lusaka got 3, it means only 68 districts were eventually given. So the rest of the districts, that's where we would say the outcome did not reflect the discussions in the meeting. But for the rest of the 68 districts, 99% is what was discussed in the district. In a few cases, in very few cases, again, because the ultimate mandate lies with the commission, there were changes from the commission in terms of issues like names, where on reviews, this name would not engender cohesion in that particular district, may communicate a bias towards a certain community or towards even a certain locality. All right. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I mean, it may be quite stretching it.
I mean, I've got one that I want to ask you about. Yeah,
I'll give you an example. Not that it's a new name, but it's an old name. But just to communicate this issue, Monali constituency, for example. Okay, the name Monali has historical and all that. Okay. But can you imagine if Monali constituency was named Mtendere? because it's the highest populated in Monali, there may be a projection that for you to be an MP, you must be living in Mtendere, which is not bringing cohesion. But because Monali as a neighborhood is not very densely populated, the majority of the numbers come from Mtendere, China, and all that. So the name there is okay. But if you do that to a new constituency in a district, then you might want not to avoid that. So rather the commission avoided that, so that then there is a sense in which everyone in that constituency feels I'm entitled. I have an opportunity to stand here as a member of parliament.
I get the significance of. I'm going to give you an example. I get the significance of Dag Hammarskjöld.
Yeah.
I think some people may not get the significance of Dag Hammarskjöld. Yeah. Who decided on the name? Did it come from the consultations, or was that something from the Electoral Commission?
That came from the stakeholders in Ndola.
Okay.
So they came up with that.
Okay. Yeah. Again, as I said, I understand the significance, but I noticed that there were a lot of people who were asking this question about Dag. Why is it called Dag Hammarskjöld? It's the only one that doesn't have a inverted comma, a local name. Yeah. Can I also ask you, because this is the thing that confused me must have been on Wednesday when the announcement was made, either Wednesday or Thursday. I had a terrible, my bearings were all over the place because I had my wife was going into labor, so I was a little all over the place on last week. But when I heard the announcement in the evening that they were said these are the 70 new constituencies, I instantly looked for where my constituency, Monali constituency, because I always thought that Lusaka, as an example, that they would, and I think we had this conversation that there would be, for example, Monali A, Monali B. Yeah. That was my assumption, right? Okay. But then somebody called me and said that Monali remained Monali. It wasn't split, but Kalingalinga had moved to some other constitution. I was a little confused because then I thought, but wait, I thought the whole idea was a literal split in half. Just explain how you arrived at, rather than splitting, but rather moving, moving them around, right. which is essentially what happened here.
Oh yeah. So let's get back to one of the factors, remember we spoke about in the Constitution, that the constituency has to be wholly within a district. So that, by implication, means whereas the Commission is looking at the whole country in delimiting, ultimately, because of that, the unit of operation becomes the district. Because you cannot go across. Of course, in looking at this, we look at it by provincial distribution and so forth. But the unit of operation becomes the district. Now, we have two broad scenarios in terms of the districts. We have districts that have one constituency. I was referring to Kasempa earlier. So Kasempa, as we speak, has one constituency. Okay, then you have districts that have two or more. So this is where Lusaka lies. So in this exercise, how the Commission approached those districts. So for the single constituency districts, it's obvious. There we talk about splitting. Okay, but when you're talking about a district with more than one constituency, there's two steps to the process. The first step is, given the factors that we've outlined, how many constituencies does this district deserve? Okay? That's question number one. Now, in considering those factors, if you determine, so let's come back to Lusaka, right? To say, okay, Lusaka deserves 3 more. Then now you get to the next step and say, how do we rearrange the wards in Lusaka to establish the new constituency? So in certain cases, much as the district has more than one constituency, only one was split. So I guess that's how the people in the new Roma constituency feel a little bit odd, because Kanyama was just exclusively Kanyama itself that was split into two, Kanyama and Makeni. Similarly for Matero. Okay? But for Monali and Mandevu and Lusaka Central, there was a reconfiguration there. So some wards were picked from Mandevu, some from Monali, and some from Lusaka Central to form the Roma constituency. So that's the rationale there. Because remember, the mandate for the commission is not just to create new, but also to review the current. So in doing that review, you're also looking at rearrangements of the wards to ensure that there is that within the context of the district, there's that reasonableness in the number of inhabitants, but also take into consideration the area. So another example I would give. So this was not just unique to Mandevo, Monali, Lusaka Central. I'll give an example of Kabwe. So Kabwe in Central Province had two constituencies, Kabwe Central and Wacha. Now, because the new constituency is called Wacha South, an average person out there would think, it's just Wacha that was split. No. There was a reconfiguration of a few wards from Lusaka, Kabwe Central So in some cases, you find a ward would move from an existing constituency to another existing constituency, and then from that other to the new, so that then there is that reasonableness in terms of population, but also geographical size within the context of the district.
Okay, so what does that then mean for a voter? I'll take Munali again. I'm so sorry to anyone else, but it's the one example that I can give because I'm from there, so I sort of understand. If you take Munali as an example, for those that were within Kalingalinga who are now no longer in the Munali constituency, I believe maybe they're now in Roma. I could be wrong. What happens with their voting? I'm assuming they still go somewhere in Kalingalinga, or is there a change? Just explain, and then from a broader perspective, what happens to everybody else?
So if I'm not mistaken, I think I can pick up one polling station in Kalingalinga, which is, I think, Vera Chiluva School. Okay? So if you're registered as a voter at Vera Chiluva School, understandably, when you were registering, at the back of your mind, you're in Monali constituency. Come August 13th, you will still vote at Vera Chiluva School. However, you'll be voting for a member of parliament for your new constituency, which is Roma. Another example is the University of Zambia. As they were registering, they were in Monali. But come August 13th now, they'll still vote at the University of Zambia, but now they belong to Roma constituency. Their voters' cards remain valid, and everything else is all good.
Even though the names on, because I wish I had looked at my voter's card this morning, but I believe it shows you the constituency. It doesn't.
The constituency doesn't show on the voter's card. It's only the polling station.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in other words, it's as you were last time round.
Yes.
Nothing changes, regardless of whether or not when you read the new constituencies, you're somewhere else. It doesn't matter in terms of where you vote from.
Where you vote does not matter.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I also want to ask you, I'm sure you've picked up this since the report was given out, to say, why is it that other provinces have got more than Lusaka? I know you talked about the factors earlier on.
Yes.
But I am curious, and I know a lot of people have this question, to say Lusaka is the one area that is densely populated, but it's the one province that didn't get as many as some of the other provinces.
All right.
Yeah.
So, again, let's go back to the factors and hold them in balance. So, yes, Lusaka, 3 million plus as a province. However, the size is 22,000 square kilometers. Western Province is 1.3 million citizens. In terms of size, about 5 times that of Lusaka Province. So holding those in balance, that's how we got to that. Now, another aspect to look at, because remember, going back to the factor says recognize both. Have regard, take into consideration sparsely populated and densely populated. Now, if you look at, let's compare Lusaka and Western Province. If you look at the increase in percentage terms, all right, Lusaka was at 12 constituencies. It's got 6, which is a 50% increase. Western Province was at 19, he got 7, which is a 36% increase. So that gives you a different perspective in terms of how much share has Lusaka got out of this new these 70 constituencies. Then remember also that Lusaka as a province has the least number of districts. Again, going back to one of those factors that the constituency has to lie within a district, okay? So Lusaka has 6 districts, okay? Almost all of them have, except Luangwa and Rufunza. And Lusaka district itself got 3. It's the only one that got more than 1. So beyond the first glance, let's look at the numbers a bit more, and you realize that there is equity built in there in terms of looking at these factors.
Okay. I don't know if you've picked this, if you've heard this. I'm sure it bothers you less as a commission. But I've heard commentators, political commentators, make the argument to say that some areas received a lot of provinces because of political intonations, i.e., maybe one example is that they were the commission was trying to find ways of appeasing members of parliament, existing members of parliament, so those that sort of faced competition in their areas, let's add an extra. Also, there's another angle of let's add more in northwestern, southern, western province, because at some point they might have more seats in the House. I don't know where the commission stands on some of those insinuations by people.
So I think right from the start, the basis of the whole of this exercise and what the compass has been for the commission has been the factors that we spoke to earlier. So as we were conducting this exercise, strictly guided by the provisions in the Constitution. So look at this, and this is what we've looked at. But also going, stretching it a little bit further, is that really, I think the history of this country has demonstrated that, all these institutions are very temporal. That's the reason we go to elections every 5 years. We don't know who is strong where until you vote. Okay, so rest assured that I think the in terms of the spread of the constituencies is as close as it was when we had the 156.
Okay, so as close. So in other words, none of those factors were looked at.
No,
there was not even the back of your heads where you thinking, let's assist a particular party by giving them more seats in this area rather than this area.
No, not at all.
Okay, does that speak to issues around transparency though? That maybe the commission, I don't know if people feel like that because they feel like there was not that much transparency. Are you able to just touch on the transparency aspect here?
Yeah, I think in terms of this process, I think it is demonstrated the opposite, that there was a lot of transparency. I will cite an example which may be not a very good example, but really a reality that demonstrated the transparency. So the fact that we had these consultations in all the districts, and the people felt genuinely engaged. A number of people left those meetings because the information was out there. It was public meetings. The maps were being displayed. Even their decisions to how they were going to demarcate the wards to come up with the constituency. All that was discussed, and the resolutions summarized, read out at the end of the meeting. A good number of people left those meetings very sure that their district would get a new constituency, even the name of the constituency. Now, because of that, some people went ahead of themselves and started positioning themselves to contest those seats. So people began to wonder, but how do they know? But that demonstrated that the fact that this whole exercise was conducted in the public domain. There was it was open. The people made submissions, and because they were able to relate to the factors, I once again I'll point out Kasempa. I'm sure as the people were leaving the meeting in Kasempa, they were very sure we'll get a constituency. As the people were leaving, the meeting in Kazungula, which is probably also about 17,000 square kilometers, just one district, they were pretty confident that, look, we will get another. But like I said, the minor side of it is that some went further than they ought to have, and the commission did address this during the meetings in the provinces that, look, no constituency has been determined yet, so no one is allowed to campaign until these constituencies take effect in May 2026. So I'm bringing that out to demonstrate that this process was very transparent. Play that out there. It's just that I wouldn't be surprised that the people that are making these assertions didn't attend any of these meetings, so they are not able to relate to what actually happened. So next time, please take advantage of this and participate. Those that participated are able to relate, and that's how you've seen all these positive reactions in terms of the outcome of the process. Yeah.
Here's a follow-up question from somebody. It says the whole point is about representation of people and not the empty areas. The example given there about Western Province with empty spaces does not hold water. Is this an argument that you can see or not?
Yeah, it's an argument that I've seen made. But again, let's go back to the Constitution. Okay, the Constitution is very explicit. Have regard for sparsely populated areas. Have regard. So the Constitution requires the Commission to pay attention to those areas. Okay, it's not that just because there's an empty space there's still a community somewhere. We were referencing settlement patterns earlier as we're talking about some of the data that we used. There's a community in that area that requires representation. Okay, so I gave a broad example of the Western Province, but we zeroed down to a few districts. I know I didn't mention in Western Province. We zeroed down to Northwestern and Southern Province, Kazungula and Kasempa. Real examples here that we're talking about. A district as huge as Lusaka Province. Okay, so this is not to say Lusaka Province was ignored. I mean, that argument would come if we had zero in Lusaka and then we had all these taken there. But Lusaka got constituencies, all right? And also the others also got. So there has to be that balancing act in this respect.
There was... my brother was wondering why Zimba, as an example, in Southern Province, only has the one constituency, which is Mapatizia. He says Mapatizia is geographically large. Is it because it's less populated, or is it that the majority of concerns heard was that development and focus was not equitably distributed? The major complaints are from the Zimba ward, and there are concerns. Again, this is just one example, but there are concerns, or maybe there's a lack of understanding in terms of how we arrived at the ones that we ended up arriving at and left out a few.
All right. Yeah. So again, like we said, our unit of operation, like we said, is a district. But however, the commission also had to be mindful of the provincial distribution. Okay, so now when you zero down to a district, then you have to analyze the district within the context of the province. Okay, how does Zimba relate to other districts in the province in terms of population and also size? So it is on that weight that Zimba fell out this time around. But probably what the citizens of Zimba should draw comfort from is that I think one of the benefits of this exercise that I think the nation will appreciate is that it is possible to delimit constituencies. It's not something we can just keep talking about. It's something that can be done. Now, given and therefore the constitution can be amended to address this particular issue, and constituencies established. So now that this has been demonstrated, we from the Electoral Commission foresee a situation that as every 10 years after a census, or indeed before, as the Commission reviews, we will see all these districts being addressed. Once again, I think as we were starting the program, listeners out there have to be mindful that really at the end of the day also, there was the issue of we had 70 to share among its 116. So it's not every district that did not receive that did not deserve. There's probably very few that if you look at the numbers, you can say, okay, here, maybe really not. Even if the stakeholders, submitted, we think, no. Without picking a fight, let me probably pick out one so that people can relate to. Luangwa district, population 36,000 people. Yes, geographically huge, but if you look at the settlement patterns, you find that the people are, concentrated. The rest of it is your reserve and your mountain ranges and so forth. So for now, maybe Luangwa, no. Okay, but there are very few like those. But the rest of them, even if they are not among us, the 68 districts that got a constituency, does not mean they do not deserve. They do deserve. It's just that
you only had 70 to go through. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me take a quick little break for news. We'll return on Let the People Talk with your phone calls, your text messages. If you want to call us, 226-841. If you want to send us a text message, 0978-895-895. Back shortly.
30 years of bold radio. All right, we're going to kick things off. Fearless talk and non-stop music. The Community News is brought to you with the compliments of National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
The headlines: Kasama man sentenced to 5 years for burglary. Petauke man commits suicide after marital dispute. With the Community News on Phoenix FM, my name is Wanzianji Mulwanda. A 22-year-old man from Musenga Township in Kasama District has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment with hard labor for burglary by the Kasama Magistrate Court. Samuel Wale appeared before the Magistrate Chapson Siluimba to answer to a charge of burglary, contrary to Section 303A of the Penal Code. The court heard that on April 6, 2026, Wale, together with other unidentified accomplices, broke into a building belonging to Davis Chiwe. The incident occurred around 03 hours when the complainant was walking by a security guard who was pursuing suspected thieves. During the break-in, Wale stole a television set valued at 8,500 kwacha from the bar. A television was later recovered but had sustained extensive damage. Investigations established that the suspects gained entry and exited through a damaged door. In mitigation, Wale asked the court for leniency, promising not to repeat the offense and expressing concern that his maize field would go to waste if he was imprisoned. However, Magistrate Siluimba pointed out that burglary is a serious offense, felony attracting a maximum sentence of 7 years, and that the offense is rampant in the district. A 52-year-old man from Kampidipidi village in Chief Kalindawalo's area of Petauke district has died by suicide following suspicions that his wife was involved in an extramarital affair. Special Sakala allegedly ended his life by ingesting a maize preservative chemical commonly known as kafumbwe. The incident stemmed from a marital dispute with his 48-year-old wife Patricia Zulu on 21st April 2026 over her alleged relationship with a man identified as Isaac Daka. After the dispute, Mr. Sakala confronted Mr. Daka and accused him of having an intimate affair with his wife. Later that same day, around 15 hours, Daka served Sakala with a court summons for defamation of character. Upon receiving the summons, Mr. Sakala told his wife he intended to commit suicide the following morning, 22nd April 2026 at about 8 hours. His 15-year-old daughter found him behind the toilet consuming aluminum phosphate. According to an Eastern Province Police Commissioner, the juvenile quickly alerted villagers after witnessing her father drinking the chemical. Mr. Sakala began vomiting and was rushed to Kalindawalo General Hospital, but he was pronounced dead on arrival. To end the community news updates, the headlines again. Kasama man sentenced to 5 years for burglary. Petauka man commits suicide after marital dispute. Keep listening to Phoenix FM.
The community news was brought to you with the compliments of National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
Mdala namvera ati mzimai wapaka ntemba vuta cha ati vantu vachitotantama mdala vinangu vachitopakinga mamotoka na mataipa mkosi sofu
wavuta na chia ni mzimai
vitubuwa vamene vanzake monga sivalipo ka inenona monga ni mankwala vogwira vachipoyi ndava vachilama
imwe boza simu nkwala iyayi
manje ni vicha
ni vitumbua flour mix yaba National Milling Corporation vichoka flour yokonzeka kudala ni kufaka machebe manzi na isti pasi wafrainga
vitumbua flour mix ndi flour osaganiza kale kwa inu ndi kungo frainga chabe musavuta vitumbua flour mix waso pano apezeka mu matumba a 10 kgs kuchokela ku abwenzi anu antau zonse awa ndi a National Milling Corporation. National Milling Corporation, Zambia's pride nationwide.
It's 10:05. Welcome back to Let the People Talk. Our guest this morning, Mr. Brown Kasaro, who is the Chief Electoral Officer at the Electoral Commission of Zambia, discussing issues revolving around the new constituencies and I know anything else that revolves around elections. If you want to get in touch with us, 226-841, 0978-895-895. You can also send us a WhatsApp message on 0978-895-895. There are two questions that are very similar in nature that I want to pose to you. This is from Muchona. Muchona says, please find out from me how Chikankata constituency was left out. What intrinsic issues did they take into consideration? Shadrick says, why was Chichele Ward in Kavushi? Why move Chichele Ward to Kavushi, which means Kavushi has 10 wards, while the new constituency, DAG, has 3, and our ward is near to DAG, which has 3. So again, very similar in nature. Do you just want to explain what the thinking was behind the two?
Yeah, so for Chikankata, again, I think if you can look at the size, the combination of the size and the population, again, within the context of the province, that would inform your you would be able to see how that the commission did not pick Chikankata. But once again, it deserves. But it's just that we had 70 here we're speaking about. Yeah. Then I think Kabushi, so the Ndola case is typical case like Lusaka, where in establishing the Gamashot, the commission also reconfigured the wards within Ndola so that there is equitable distribution. If you look at the map of the Ndola district area, the constituencies, Kawushi was a very tiny constituencies, notwithstanding the density in population, but still in comparison to the others. So besides the establishment of the new constituency, the stakeholders in discussion also reviewed the existing constituencies so that there's a balance in alignment of the wards. Now, when we're speaking about wards, it's unlike population. Let's not count the number of wards. There is no minimum or maximum number of wards that should establish a constituency. Now, when you're looking at the constituency, it's really population and area. Wards were just used in this context so that we do not disturb the register of voters and keep those entities the same, because in any case we are not increasing the number of council seats. So the realignment of wards was not to say let's make sure each constituency has equal number of wards. No, we're looking at population and how the proximity and accessibility of those wards in respect of the realignment for either the new or the existing constituencies.
Okay, so can I ask you, if one went round, I know you said that don't look at the wards and count them, but I'm assuming if you went to populations and counted the populations, if you only added 3 in a particular constituency and then another one has 10, they would be very close to one another.
They would be very close. Okay. They would be very close. Where they're not very close, then look at the surface area.
Okay. This from someone says, the purpose of delimitation is to make it easy to deliver development. For example, hospitals, schools. What would be the use of building schools in places that don't have people, like Western Province, while schools in Lusaka and other densely populated places remain congested with less health facilities? So this comes back to that earlier question from somebody else here.
All right.
Yeah.
I see the perspective where the caller is, or the listener is coming from. The purpose of the primary purpose of a constituency, it's an electoral boundary for purposes of election to the National Assembly. So the primary purpose is the representation. Okay, so that's the primary purpose. Representation. Now, this representation has to balance, again, as the Constitution outlines, the densely and the sparsely. For the densely populated, representation has to make sure that the Member of Parliament is not having to interact with this huge population. Access there is limited. Similarly, for the rural areas, you again, if the Member of Parliament has to deal with this huge area where people are sparsely populated, again, it limits access. So the Constitution was designed, was framed to strike a balance between the two. Yeah. Now, I know that in the current, one of the economic policies that the current government has implemented, which is not just the current, but I think is the issue of Constituency Development Fund. Okay. Now, there's one way of looking at CDF, getting back to his perspective. You look at CDF and say, all right, you need health facilities and so forth. But also, for example, the cost of a bridge in Kazungula would be the same as the cost of a bridge in a densely populated area. Much as that bridge will only be crossed by hundreds of people, and here it's thousands of people. But really the cost is the same. But also, I think let's not forget here that ultimately, infrastructure development in the country, much as it's not the mandate of the Commission, but really just is not limited to CDF, as it were. For urban centers, there's infrastructure development that gets to happen outside of the CDF because of other government programs and so on. So ultimately, really, coming back to the primary purpose is representation through Parliament. So the people in Western Province, in Northwestern Province, in Northern Province, in Muchinga Province, required to be represented. They may be scattered around across a particular area, but they're Zambians that require to be represented. They require access to a Member of Parliament so their voice is heard through the House. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me go to the phone lines so you can hear from your other stakeholders. 22641 0978 895 895. Hello. Good morning.
Morning, Lucy. Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name, sir?
Joseph Muzumbo from Villa. Good morning, Mr. Brian Kasaro.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. I want to find out where Villa is in Loma, so be voting in Loma concerns. Villa Elizabetha. So because I've got the problem with the MPs for Villa, they don't appear here in Villa when we vote for them. So Villa is in Loma or is in what? Villa Elizabetha. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Joseph.
All right, Villa. I may not be able to get that off cuff, okay, but so probably let me just read out the wards. So if Joseph knows which ward he is in, maybe he could relate. Okay, so the wards that are now falling in Roma constituency are Silwizia, Roma, Mulungushi, Ngwerere, and Kalingalinga. So if he can relate to any of those, I'm sure he will be able to know where he falls. But this information will be available soon. As we publish the register of voters, then the people will be able to, as early as this month end, they'll be able to relate explicitly. But if you know your ward, I'm sure by me reading out those words, you'll be able to appreciate which constituency you fall in.
Okay. Just on this one, very similar to Kampata over on our text, says the creation of the new constituencies has meant that we will now be required to vote for different candidates from before. What happens when we are now unable to vote for our previously preferred candidates because of the redrawing of the constituencies? Will the ECZ allow people to change their polling station to continue voting for their preferred candidates?
All right.
Yeah.
So I think that question is premised on a wrong assumption. But let me start with the answer to it. So as we speak, the register of voters is closed. So no transfers, no change of polling stations. You go and vote where you registered to vote. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that the text of that question is premised on largely a wrong assumption. Is because it's premised on the fact that the voter, even before nominations, is in control of who contests where. So even if there was no delimitation, we were to remain with the 156 constituency, you and I as voters don't know who will stand. So we may have a preferred person, but remember our electoral system, candidates are either sponsored by parties or independent. If the party does not adopt that person, what happens? So ultimately, once we register, ours is to register, and come nomination day, we will know who is contesting in our constituency. Then they campaign, they lay out their program, they lay out their manifesto, and at that point we make a choice who is the best candidate to represent us in this constituency.
Okay. Just for Joseph, there's somebody on our text, Mr. Emmanuel, who says Villa is in Silesia Ward under Roma, I believe.
Okay, so he's confirmed. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, good morning.
Oh, Lucy, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name, sir?
How are you?
Very well, thank you. What's your name?
Kasaro, good morning.
What's your name, sir?
Mr. Mudi Douglas, Singola.
Okay, go ahead, Douglas.
Mr. Kasaro, I want to ask you what happened when they made all political leaders. Why did the ECZ, was it through you told all the people to go out, meaning the journalists? What was the rationale behind asking the journalists to leave the room and you address the political parties? What was the meaning of that? What happened was very disappointing. And on the invitation, Mr. Kasaro, yes, that's a scapegoat. The people behind this, the masters of this, they know what they're doing. Whatever what you say, no matter how we say it, we know what is happening. I'll give an example. Chirubi Island, it has got 32 watts, but it's not limited. What is your say? No matter how just you remember last time I spoke with you on this radio, I told you're one of the. Do you have any links with the UPND? You denounced that you have got nothing to do with the UPND. But what you are doing, we know the visible one. It's just a scapegoat.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I need
Douglas, thank you, Douglas. Okay. Do you want to quickly respond to Douglas?
Oh, yeah. So I think he did refer to the stakeholder meeting that was held on Friday the 17th. Why did we ask the media to leave the room? This is standard practice. I think if Douglas belongs to any organization, or this is not unique. Meetings there's two kinds of meetings that are usually held by the commission. There's briefings where all you're doing is sharing information. And then there's meetings where you want to deliberate. That's why even in meetings, people come up with minutes at the end of the day and resolution. If you are to privy to the discussions that go on before that final minute is recorded, you would really be shocked. But ultimately, what is important is what was agreed at the end of the day. So the idea of the commission asking the media to leave the room was for purposes of us having a discussion in there so that we could, ideas could be thrown back and forth, arguments could be had in a very sober environment, and then come out with resolutions that we could share with the country. Probably, even what happened, the few clips that people have seen justify that decision. Because then people were going to be playing to the gallery. We're going to be, because people are going to watch me out there, I have so many clicks, so let me say this. But really, serious business had to be discussed. And this is not to disrespect the media. The media are familiar with this practice. In a number of institutions, in a number of cases that official opening, they cover it, and they're asked to step back. The meeting goes on, deliberations are had, and then resolutions are communicated at the end of it all. Yeah.
Okay. There was another question about Chulubi Island.
Yeah, of course. Like you said, there's so many examples that we can pick in terms of districts that qualify that were left out, and we could pick up those districts and cast a negative shadow on the rest of the 70. So really, we had 70 to distribute amongst 116. Yes, very deserving districts have been left out. Should we say the rest of the exercise is not worth it because of this? No. So I think let Douglas look at this in this context.
Just on that, someone again, there'll be a lot of these this morning. Why was Mulobezi left out when it's 10 times bigger than the Kawaja constituency and many others? That's from somebody called Black Maria.
Yeah. So again, I'll look like
I know, and that's why I said that there'll be a lot of these.
So I'm grateful for questions like that, because then the other listeners who are focusing on densely populated are getting the perspective of the other Zambian on the ground who is saying, look, yes, you are looking at all this, but look at my particular district. So let me just quickly make reference to Mlovezi, maybe so that we can just speak to the numbers, as it were. Yeah. So if you look at Mlovezi, I think the issue that one of the factors that did not get Mlovezi to get the constituency is population. Yes, the area is massive, 12,000 plus square kilometers, but it's got 46,000 inhabitants. And looking at that, again, within the context also of the province, and also that's how Mlovezi felt. But that doesn't mean it does not deserve, but thank you for bringing that up. Like we said, at 70 against 116. But thank you for bringing it out, because then it helps to educate the listener in the urban areas that, look, there is these situations, and the people there also are yearning, or rather are really looking forward to more effective representation.
Okay. 2268410978895. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name, sir?
Mr. Ntele.
Yes, Mr. Ntele, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Now, good morning, the panelists. I wanted to find out, I know that I've been asking over this same issue. Now, I don't know what criteria they are using, like Mr. George Segre, so you want to stand as Kasenengwa. I've seen Kasenengwa as a very, very big constituency. So I don't know criteria what they were using. Do they look at the population or the big of the area? Because I've seen, like in Petauke again, the delimitation, and the people are saying those who voted for Butane as well. Look at Chipata Central. Chipata Central again, it has been eliminated. So my concern, what criteria they were using? Like here now, where I live in Matelo, they are saying there will be a Lima ward. I don't know the demarcation. That's why I say now, like the previous caller said, no, I have to support, I will support this person. Now it has been eliminated, it has gone to other area. So now, concerning even some of these word and so on, now, what criteria are they using? Especially in Kasenengwa, I'm telling you, Kasenengwa is a very, very big constituency, but they didn't even eliminate. We are thinking that maybe there will be Chipanamba or Kasenengwa. And most of these MPs, almost of these MPs who are coming from Kasenengwa, they are just coming from the same area. So how can you help in such scenario? Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Do you want to... I was also just quickly trying to find where Kasenengwe is, Eastern Province. See, I'm also learning my mapping here.
So Eastern Province. Again, when citizens are calling and using these words, they're very relative terms. So I think we had a previous caller who said Mlowezi. Now, Mlowezi is 12,000 square kilometers. Kasenengwe is about 2,000. But Mr. Ntere is saying it's very big. Again, speaking to really the desire to have a greater representation, as it were. So, Mr. Ntere, once again, it's a combination. So, in short, the factors, I think the factors that keep coming up are the two factors that are quantifiable, as it were. So, we are talking about surface area and population, which distill into the population density. Okay. Now, these two factors have to be weighed in balance in determining whether a district qualifies for an extra constituency or not. So it's both surface area and the population for the area. Now, he did allude to, I didn't get it clearly, but probably I could still address it, the aspect of Lima in Lusaka out of Matero. So maybe just to address that Lima constituency will comprise two wards, that's Lima and Mwembeshi. Now, for the average citizen of Lusaka who doesn't stay in these areas, some of these names are very strange because in certain areas the wards are named after maybe the biggest township or something, so you'd have Mtendere or Kalingalinga. They can easily relate. But when you hear the word Lima, Mwembeshi, so where is this and so on. So this really, we're talking about the western side of Matero, so your George, Zingalume and all that, so that's your area now that will be under Lima constituency. Whereas what remains in Matero is Matero itself, Kapwepwe and Muchinga. Again, the names are very strange, but the residents of these areas are able to identify because of the councillors. So, okay, our councillor here is the councillor for this ward, Muchinga ward, or Kapwepwe ward, or Matero ward.
Will there ever come a time? I mean, I know that one of the wonderful things that you did as a commission on your page on Facebook is you pushed out the schedule so that people can see. But obviously, there's a lot more. Are there any intentions to really now dig in and say, okay, we've created, for example, Lima. These are the actual areas in Lima, similar to the question that I think it was Joseph who had earlier on. Where is Villa exactly? Is that something that?
Yes. So that will be released as we release the register of voters.
Okay.
So there we will drill down now to the polling station. Okay. So at least people can identify a particular polling station because those are named after the whether it's the school or the community hall where it is, or the church, or indeed the grounds where. So then the people will be able to relate. So as we conclude the compilation of the register this month end, that information will be released and people will be able to identify precisely, or that, okay, I voted this polling station, now it's in this constituency.
Okay. All right. Let me go back to the phone lines. 226-841. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
Let me take off my visit.
What's your name, sir?
Mr. Banda.
Mr. Banda, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Salo.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My questions are just two questions. Who signs the independent adoption? This is a party in power, or the party represents when it's standing as an independent? Who signs those acceptance? The second one is, when the people are having a meeting there, the answered that, but when the party in power is hosting you, or you are hosting the party in power, then you say, you
Hello, Mr. Banda. Hello. I think we've lost Mr. Banda. But I didn't get the second part of the question, but I did get the first part, which is who signs independent adoptions.
Yeah, so in answering that, maybe to give a bit more context, is that in our elections, we have two categories of candidates. So either candidate can stand as an independent or sponsored by a political party. So the aspect of adoption certificate only applies to candidates sponsored by a political party, because you want to confirm that the party has adopted this person to contest that particular, whether it's councillor, mayor, MP, and so forth. Independent candidates do not require an adoption certificate. So there's no adoption certificate for independent candidates. They just have to meet the other requirements in terms of eligibility to contest that particular election.
Okay. There was a question from somebody on our WhatsApp line about ZACA qualifications.
All right.
In terms of verification of your papers. Who is the commission relying on those to be done, or are you just looking at just basic, the ECZ are the ones that are going to verify? Just explain how this is going to work.
Yeah, so again, the Constitution, one of the qualifications in the Constitution for all elective position is that the minimum academic is a grade 12 certificate or equivalent, okay, for purposes of elections. And because of this, as the candidates come to file their nominations, these certificates have to be verified. So the Commission is aware in terms of the statutory mandate of ZACA, the Zambia Qualifications Authority, in terms of verifying these qualifications for purposes of employment. Now, when it comes to elections, and for purposes also of convenience for the candidates and so forth, we said, look, the primary focus here is just the grade 12 certificates. And therefore, with discussions and with consultation with the ministry, we're saying for grade 12 certificate, get them verified by the Examinations Council. Yeah. Where ZACA will come in is the issue of the equivalent. So if you have a foreign-based qualification that you need to determine if it's equivalent to a grade 12 in Zambia, then ZACA will have to come in and certify that it indeed is equivalent to a grade 12 in Zambia. So we're happy to note that the Exam Council is decentralized. Okay, so access to this verification process is both physical, you can get to their centers, or service centers across the country, or indeed online. Okay, so you can go online and be able to access that service so that you're ready come the week starting May 18th to lodge your nominations with your grade 12 having been verified.
Okay. All right. Here's one from Victor. Victor says the big question has been lingering in people's evaluation of the ended exercise. This is the limitation. Why has the region commonly referred to as Zambezi received more seats than other regions? Why deliberately Lusaka was not given the highest? This comes back to something that we had asked earlier on, although he is very explicit in terms of naming a certain area as Zambezi.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think we addressed that.
Yeah.
But once again, to go back to the explanation again, is that when you look at, for example, highest increase in percentage-wise, actually it's Mchinga province that got the highest. And it's not among those that he's referred to in the text message there. So Mchinga had 8 constituencies, and it received 6, which is a 75% increase. Okay, and then also we said, look at the proportion. Compare. Just a quick comparison in terms of the share of the current 156, and then look at the 226 and how each province fares there. You will see that there is that equity. So really, again, this is really just addressing the tail end of it. Let's go back to the factors. Okay? And then he says Lusaka has been deliberately given, and then he is alleging deliberate there. But look, zero down to Lusaka district. It's got the highest. It's got 3. It's the only district that got more than 1. Okay? But when you look at the province, Lusaka looks like it's received the least because Lusaka has the least number of districts. Lusaka has 6 districts. And remember, one of those factors is that the constituency has to lie within a district. So all those permutations have to be brought into the picture as we're analyzing these numbers.
Okay. Tolani asks whether one can stand as an independent president.
Yes.
Okay.
One can stand.
Okay. It's a nice, simple question answer there. Thanks. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning. What's your name, sir? Hello. Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir? What's your name?
Hello. Good morning.
Morning. What is your name? What's your name?
My name is Thomas.
Thomas. Okay, go ahead, Thomas.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Kasaro. I think related to what you asked earlier, but I didn't get a proper response. So I'll give an example also from Nali, where I stay in Avondale. Then I registered for the University of Zambia. But then you find that after the demarcation of the constituents, my polling station is now at Unza, but I still want to vote for a candidate in Minari. What happens in that case? And also related to the same, I think happened in Chawama, where I think one candidate couldn't go ahead and file their stand because it was discovered that they were in a different constituency than Chawama. So what happens if, say, I want to stand in Minari, but I registered from Unza? What happens in that case to me? Do I still go ahead and contest in that constituency, given that my polling station is now in a different constituency? What happens? Can I be allowed to file nomination in that case? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So let me start with the second question. Then the first one is more fundamental issues to address there. So the second question is the short answer is yes. Because the only requirement for a person to stand as a member of parliament is to be a registered voter. Not a registered voter in the constituency you would like to contest, but just a registered voter. So even if you're a registered voter in Roma constituency, you want to contest in Monali, no problem. You qualify as long as you meet the other requirements for one to contest an election. But now, in terms of the first question, I think it's got a fundamental issue there that I think we need to address ourselves to as Zambians, is that Thomas says he stays in Avondale, but registered to vote at the University of Zambia, probably for convenience and so forth. But let's understand what is the purpose of voting. You're looking at choosing representatives for your community. Now, this representative is not just a member of parliament. There's the lower level, the ward. The councillor who looks after the University of Zambia has got nothing to do with your neighborhood in Avondale. So you're going to vote for a person who won't impact your day-to-day life in Avondale. So the ideal, okay, which the regulations speak to, is that when you're going to register as a voter, you register at a polling station closest where you ordinarily reside. So the expectation is that Thomas should have registered at a school, I think there's a school along, is it Simon?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, in Avondale.
Yeah.
Rather than registering at the University of Zambia. Maybe it was convenience, that's where he works, or a bit more accessible and so forth. So that's why he finds himself in this predicament. But this is largely really the urban setup. It's an urban issue because you stay somewhere, out of town, and the registration centers are open during the day, so which one is the best? But one of the things that we had provided for during registrations that you could have gone quite all right to the registration center at the university, but indicated to them that I'm going to vote at a polling station in Avondale. So that's the purpose of registration and the elections, as it were. Let's not just focus on the higher level officers. The councillor is the critical part of our democracy. It's a critical part of representation. The issues, most of the issues that we deal with in our neighborhoods are taken care of by councillors as they meet at Lusaka City Council to deliberate on the affairs of the city of Lusaka. So ideally, you should have registered at a polling station within Avondale. So this movement would not have necessarily affected you. You would still have been in Monali constituency. But be that as it may, your registration record at the University of Zambia remains valid. It's just that now you'll be voting for an MP in Roma constituency. The transfers have been locked, so as we speak, you cannot move your registration record to Monali constituency.
Okay. Michael asks, Michael says, it's possible that there are people who stand on some tickets as MPs, maybe even councillors, who may not be able to vote for themselves since the voter registration is locked and closed.
The short answer is yes, it's possible.
Yeah, okay. 226-841 0978 895 895. You just switched on your radio. We're with Mr. Brown Kasaro. He is the Chief Electoral Officer at the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello? Okay, lost you on that line. Let's try this other one. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Honorable Kasaro.
Morning, Dr. Proud.
Mr. Brown, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you, sir?
No matter you are facing a lot of criticism, continue working. This is Dr. Proud. Because right now, you are calling all opposition to submit their own name. They are still waiting. When they will be left out, they are going to say, no, President Hakainde is managing. No, they are not serious. Me, I'm in the Garden compound. We belong to Mandevo. But right now, we belong to Loma Ward, which means the voter system will belong to Ngwerere, including Machinchi and Simon Kapepe. There will be no change. So it's up to those people who are not ready with their own candidate to continue complaining on you. President Hakainde has already given clear guidance to say let us have election free and fair. It's up to them who doesn't have a leader. As we got the President Hakainde. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Proud. Thanks a lot. 226-841 0978 895 895. Hello, good morning. Hello,
good morning.
Good morning. What's your name, sir?
Evangelist Chakuya calling from Lusaka. Mr. Kasaro, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Evangelist. How are you?
How is your family?
Family is fine.
Yours is a very tough and non-advisable job, but someone has to do it. Anyway, my question was around, social media can fly with all sorts of information. Would Mr. Kasaro kindly clarify concerning the reported issue of failing passports at presidential level? If he has addressed it, I'm sorry, maybe I can missed it. Secondly, Mr. Kasaro, I hear you repeatedly talking about giving Lusaka 100%. I want to think that it's not a question of giving Lusaka 100%. Maybe it's a question of considering the matters at hand. Even if Lusaka was to get 200%, I think that if it is justified, so why not? So maybe the issue of saying Lusaka 6, they've gotten now 3, whatever, I think that may not apply. Truly speaking, Lusaka is so densely populated, I've done with more constituencies. That's what I think. The issue of saying no, more than 50%, 100%, that to me I think doesn't really matter. But thank you so much for coming.
Before you go, just repeat the first question. Your line was breaking. I didn't hear it completely.
Okay, Lucy. The first question was that there was a rumor about them introducing first past the post at presidential level. So I just wanted Mr. Kasaro to give clarity to that, so that we know whether at presidential level we'll be voting on 50% plus one or first past the post.
Okay, all right.
And how did it go? Is the baby here now?
Yes, the baby is here now.
We praise God, Luchi. We'll be praying for that baby.
Amen. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. All right, 2 questions there from the evangelist. You want to respond?
All right. Yeah. So the rumor around the presidential. So remember the qualifications for the presidential aspect to do with the presidential election are in the Constitution. So that was not touched when the Constitution was amended on 18th December 2025. So it remains 50% plus one. Okay. Or 50% plus, yeah.
I think I didn't. I believe you may be aware where people picked this up from.
Which we cannot discuss.
Okay, yes, because it is sitting in Parliament.
Draw comfort from the fact that the Constitution remains as is. That has not been amended, so we're still under the 50% plus.
Okay.
Yeah. Then in terms of, thank you once again, Evangelist, for that perspective. So I think similarly to maybe in my explanations, I focused on districts are deserving, even if they have not gone. But also, I think similarly, I agree with him. There are districts like Lusaka and probably Ndola, Kitwe, that Lusaka and Ndola, for example, that got, but probably deserves to get even more. But just once again, because we have the 70 that we had to share around, that's how Lusaka got the 3 instead of probably even 7. And so forth, and Ndola got 1 instead of maybe 3, and so forth. So it's just that we in explaining these issues of percentages are coming in, so that people appreciate when they're saying this one has got more than the other. Is where are they coming from? To get to where they're at compared to another province in percentage terms. Yeah. So that then we add that perspective to highlight the equity in this whole process. Yeah.
Okay. There's somebody who's asking about Kafue. Please ask Mr. Kasaro to explain where the new constituency in Kafue is located.
Okay. So Kafue, if my memory serves me right, the boundary is the. What's the road to Livingston? What is it called?
It's called the Great South Road. Isn't it just called the Southern Province Road? Madam, you who travels, what's it called?
All right, so all right, so the road to Livingston. Okay, but except that you are now. Let's switch. Don't look at it as if you're driving down from Lusaka to Kafue, but let's say you're coming from Mazabuka or Chikankata. You're driving up to Kafue.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're driving up to Kafue from Southern Province, your orientation is that you're facing your northern direction by and large. So the right-hand side is Kafue East constituency. Your left-hand side of the road is Kafue West constituency. So that would help in terms of orientation.
Okay. Yeah. I also noticed, maybe this is something that maybe it was a typographical error, but I noticed, and I'm sure you have it on your system, so you can just check for us. Chongwe West in Lusaka province has a ward called Chainda. Similarly, Munali has a ward called Chainda. Is it a typo, or they're two different ones?
They're two different words, two different areas.
Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, that was somebody picked that up and was wondering why that's the case. Okay. Hello. Good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Yeah, Emmanuel calling you from Chirabombo.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Emmanuel.
Yes, Mr. Kasaro. Dr. Kasaro. Good morning.
Good morning. It's Mr. Thank you.
Yes, we have 70 new constituencies. That's my first question. Who proposed those 70 constituencies? Then I understand we have the electoral bill in Parliament. Who proposed what is in that bill? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Two questions.
All right. So the second question, we cannot discuss it. We're not allowed to discuss a bill in Parliament. Yeah. Now, coming to the second, rather the first, the 70.
Sorry, I know you're not allowed to discuss the intricacies in it, but I think his question is who proposed. You can correct. Okay. I'll say it, then you can just say yes. A lot of what is in the bill is based off the new details in the Constitution.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So the first question: who proposed the 70? I'm not too sure whether he's talking about who proposed the 70 as the number 70 or the actual 70 that have been read out. I think in terms of the actual 70 that were announced on 16th, we've gone through that consultations with each of the districts, weighing their submissions against the factors the Electoral Commission has determined. All right. Now, in terms of the number, the number was as a result of the constitution-making process. Okay, so government spearheaded that process. There was consultations. There was a technical committee. Did draw on previous reports and submissions to arrive at the number 70. So for us as the Electoral Commission, because the number is now in the constitution, we had to proceed to demarcate the new 70.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I'm also just looking at a question from Oscar. Oscar's question is very similar in terms of who proposes the number of constituencies that the country should have. Don't you think as a commission you needed to delimit more than 70?
Yes, we would have loved more than 70, but we had 70, so we have.
Okay. Yeah. Someone also asks, what kind of representation are you expecting when an MP has 500,000 members while the other one has 100,000? Is that a fair representation?
Yeah, so goes back to the Constitution. So fairness in this respect then has to be weighed against what does representation mean in the different contexts, okay? Of course, when you look at the absolute numbers, the person that is looking at 300,000 people, 200,000 people is got more people to have to get their voices to. But probably the advantage they have is that this number of people is concentrated in a small area, so they're able to interact with them and so forth. Whereas the other one who has 100,000 or 70,000, they are spread across a very huge area. So that representation there requires more effort in terms of going around to get the views of those people as they take them to the floor. So it is for this reason that the Constitution was structured as such that the two have to be considered.
So my boss always likes to say that I think like a socialist because I'm always thinking equity. Now, so I'm going to ask you the equity question here. And wouldn't it have been easier to just say there are 70 seats? Let's just go 10-10-10 across the provinces, or 7-7-7 across the provinces. Actually, 7. That way, we don't have to sit here and make the arguments, because then we can just say, well, I mean, look, everyone has got 7.
I kid you not, we would have had the same discussion. But over and above that, I'm not sure would have been constitutionally compliant, because we would have been in a way forcing things. Yeah. So what is the basis of the ECOP? Okay. Looking at the demographics of the provinces. I know there was that proposal from some stakeholders, but really if you scrutinize it from the constitutional point of view, it would have been easier for us.
You'd have gone home and slept thinking, I don't have anything to worry about.
But we probably would have had the same discussion.
Okay. This is from Christopher. Chris is in Woodlands. Chris says, Mr. Kasaro has not adequately answered the question on why densely populated districts like Lusaka, Kitwe, and Dola got few constituencies. It just shows that the criteria used is very questionable and may be wrong. The limitation was about equity of wealth distribution through the CDF allocation and not about geography. That's from Christopher.
Yeah, so Christopher, the Constitution is very clear. Geography is a factor. So that's I think I did explain all over and over, but the short answer is that geography is a criterion, according to the Constitution. So the Commission just had to abide by that.
Okay. All right. 226-841 0978 895 895. Hello, good morning. Okay, lost you on that line. 226-841 0978 895 895 if you'd like to get in touch. If you want to send a WhatsApp, you can as well. 0978 895 895. We're almost finishing off the program, so let's see if we can just take maybe one or two calls before we finish off this morning with Mr. Kasaro. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, sir. What's your name?
General Chongo calling from Lusaka.
Sorry, your name again?
General Chongo calling from Lusaka.
Okay, go ahead, General Chongo.
Hello?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, you see where there is Honorable Brown Kasaro.
Yes, you're live on radio.
Yeah, my question to Brown Kasaro is this. One, how are the people going to know where they are going to vote while they have another constituencies? Elio secondly Bakalamba Ushe kukopa beodi na Murusaka ukita compare na kusautheni Ushe southern na Lusaka ukuli abantu abengeni kwi. Lastly Ushenga ineva ntwala kuli MP uwo shefaya kuliko bachitate limited. What will happen? Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, 3 questions. I think 2 or 3 questions there. Do you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you. So, not in the order in which they were asked. Lusaka Copperbelt has the biggest population. Why compared to Southern, but why less? Again, we've spoken about this. Let's look at the factors as a whole. Let's not just focus. I think if you notice from the callers, which is exactly, I think, what the Constitution is addressing. So every caller from the city says, hey, look at population. Every caller from the rural area says, hey, look at how big our constituencies are. So hence the balance that the Constitution brought into the factors. How will people know? So please rest assured, is it General Chongo, that this coming month, the Electoral Commission of Zambia would deploy voter education facilitators that will sensitize the communities in terms of the new constituencies that belong to. But also we have the extra incentive that as people file nominations come mid-May, they'll start campaigning in these areas. So they'll go and campaign and tell you that now you're in Roma and I'm standing in Roma. So really, by the time we get to August 2026, you'll be well informed about which constituency you're in as you go to cast your vote. The last one, I think we did address it earlier around preferred candidates and so forth, and we did mention that, look, even if the constituencies were to remain as is now, we all don't know who is standing in what constituency until May. So only then will we decide. That's actually the essence of an election. After that, people come forward to contest. Then you can pick up to say who is my favorite candidate and choose to cast your vote for them.
Okay. Yeah. There's a question here from somebody about Rufunsa. Rufunsa starts from Chongwe Bridge to Luangwa Bridge, 2 to 3 hour drive on one stretch, 12 very big wards. Why would you cut Chibuyunji and leave out Rufunsa? Does this go back to the earlier?
Yes. So again, looking at the weighing of the factors around the population and the size. So yes, it's very big. It's very big in terms of size, but also what is the settlement pattern of those people? Okay, so it's not just about being big, but where are the people settled in Rufunsa? And in terms of accessibility and so forth, how easy is it to get representation for those people in Rufunsa? So I think the long and the short, that is it.
All right. So someone, Melvin says, are we going to be voting online? There's a short answer there.
No. Okay. No, you have to physically go to your polling station with your voter's card and national registration card to cast your vote.
All right. And the second one, please advise your candidates to be matured. Is there a conversation that the Commission is going to have with candidates about a bit more sanity in terms of campaigns?
Yes. So immediately after the filing of nominations, we have meetings with the candidates in developing timetables and the code of conduct and how they ought to conduct their campaigns. Okay. So I suspect this is a reference to the meeting last Friday.
Yes.
The listeners out there might want to appreciate that this was an open meeting, open to all registered political parties. So you may not believe it or not, but everyone was in that room belongs to a registered political party. So at this point, the Commission could not discriminate and say, all right, you don't look serious. No, they are registered political parties, so they had to come. But after the nominations, that distills the the number of people, the stakeholders that we need to continue to hold meetings with. So now we'll be able to restrict ourselves to those that are contesting, be it at presidential or indeed at the lower levels of the election.
Okay. Somebody asked about voter education. Are you going to be doing voter education early?
Yes, we're starting end of May and June, so we will have our foot soldiers on the ground. And what we're speaking about today, the limitation, how it relates to the register of voters, and how generally to effectively participate in elections will be addressed by our educators.
Okay. I also just want to say this before we finish off that I didn't pay that much attention until a few days ago on this because again, one of the things that the commission did, which I thought was commendable, was you put out a summary of the provinces, but you also talked about the surface area in terms of the square kilometers. So when you talk about geography and population, at least you can sort of go side by side and try and see what's going on. So I was a little taken aback, for example, that Lusaka is a 22,000 square kilometer, but there's 3 million people living in it, whereas Central Province, as an example, is a 94,000 square kilometer and has 2.2 million people as of 22. So I guess it gives a nice picture on your angle in terms of geography was something that we looked at.
Yes.
All right. Anything else that you want to say before I let you go?
Yeah, so I think that ultimately all this is about participation. So get involved. If you're already registered as a voter, follow through with what is happening and get counted in terms of casting your ballot come August 2026.
Okay. Our guest this morning, Mr. Brown Kasaro, is the Chief Electoral Officer at the Electoral Commission of Zambia. Thank you very much for coming on the program this morning.
I appreciate Luchi, and thanks to Radio Phoenix for the opportunity.
That is today's edition of Let the People Talk. Thank you.